In this video, we are driving a second generation Smart. Again, this is the 451, launched in 2007, but this is the one everyone tells you to avoid. It's the non-turbo MHD, which makes it pure hub nut. So MHD stands for micro hybrid drive, but that's pushing it a bit really. It just means basically it's got stop start. It's a belt driven starter stroke generator. A bit like my Invacar with its Dynastart unit that once fitted to so many microcars back in the day to start and then charge. So that's what this uses. It's just got a normal battery, albeit a higher capacity one. It's pushing it to call it a hybrid. So in terms of styling, it's very much the same theme as the first generation, and that's what makes this test particularly interesting, is we can compare with our first generation Smart that we now own. We have driven in it today. We have jumped straight out of that into this one, and already the quality feels a definite notch up. I mean, this is a bit different because this is the coupe rather than the convertible, but just the way things open and close just feel a bit more quality than the first generation. Incidentally, even the coupe versions get a bit of storage just there now. On ours, that's where you store the roof bars. But yeah, as you shut everything, it just feels ever so much better in terms of quality. Let's see if that carries over to the interior. Yeah, that's definitely better. Yeah, that feels a lot better. Again, another difference is the first generation City Coupe had a glass roof. They had a horrible habit of exploding randomly. There was one at our last Hubnut Social on which that had happened. This polycarbonate, and if it gets a bit much, there's now a proper sunshade. On the first generation, you just got a thin bar that you had to point in the right place to try and stop the sun absolutely scalping you. And it meant that air conditioning was absolutely essential. But yeah, the fit and finish does feel much improved. There's a bit of character loss with all this, but I think there's improved functionality. There's clearer heater controls. There's a glove box. Yes, there is actually a glove box on this one, as well as obviously a passenger airbag. And this one has the pods. I'm quite keen to add the pods to my Smart. We also have flappy paddles for the gear change. It looks similar in terms of this little control here. That puts it into soft touch automatic mode. But it's now a 5-speed gearbox, which is good because way too many gears on the first generation. And because it's the MHD, we've got eco mode. So that's what turns on your stop start. It's a bit more than just turning the engine off when you're stationary. When you slow below 5 miles an hour, it cuts out. Very, very similar to the Fiat Panda I drove in Italy earlier this year. That had a separate lithium-ion battery, but the idea is the same. It charges up the battery as it goes along. There's a little bit of regen back through that generator to charge the battery. So the fact it stops starting all the time shouldn't be too much of an issue going along. We will have a quick look at the engine as much as we can. There's now a proper luggage load cover, which must be the smallest little cover in the world. That is absolutely tiny, and there's a separate thing down the back here to stop your luggage disappearing. On the first generation, you can choose to have that there or on top, and I just noticed there's a little luggage net on the back as well. See what this engine access is like. Very, very similar, I think, as in not very much. I'm going to pull this cover out entirely.
That alternator's higher up, isn't it?
Yeah. So this is the engine. It is now a Mitsubishi engine. Smart worked with Mitsubishi for the first generation 4.4, and that led to this development where the second generation, they were all Mitsubishi engines. This is the 71 brake horsepower non-turbo. You get 82 horsepower turbo, which we've driven, or there was a Brabus version, which I think was 102, and all 3-cylinder engines. The turbo's slightly smaller in capacity. I think this is 999 cc, but as Miss Hubnut correctly points out, we've got the alternator right up here now, and this big thick drive belt because this alternator is starting the engine. That is a problem on these. If that belt goes and it's under a lot of strain because it's got to start the engine, you lose charging, water cooling, everything goes. And one issue is the belts don't last as long as they should, and also the bracket for the alternator can apparently bend slightly, puts everything out of alignment and chews up belts. So the MHDs do have a poor reputation in the marketplace, to the point some people try and hide the fact they're MHDs. So do be careful if you're buying one of these second generation Smart. It was launched in 2008, the MHD, initially as an option, but by the time this one was made, I think it had become standard on the non-turbo. I'm going to put all this back together. We go for a drive.
So I'm wondering if this boot is a little more capacious than ours, because I think this is 220 litres. It feels different, doesn't it?
It does feel a little bit more spacious, yeah, and definitely a bit better thought out. But everyone says the Smarts have tiny boots, but we went shopping yesterday, family of 4 and a Smart. Was that compatible? We've made a little short explaining exactly how that went down. You might be surprised. Firing the engine up, it should just spin into life. Yeah, and it does very, very smoothly. I do like having the rev counter, and you can, if the passenger wants to keep an eye on it, you can rotate this. The same with the clock. I quite like that. We found this little tray, little oddment tray down here. That's all good. And yeah, we got this, a little bin or ashtray or whatever you want it to be. Cup holder, you could just plonk a big cup in there. Wine cooler, who knows. But otherwise, yeah, the stalks exactly the same as the first generation. We've got a little binnacle ahead, which now goes up to 100, because I believe these go up to 95 limited top speed. Previous generation was 85. This one's done 62,810 miles, so it's about the same mileage as our Smart as well. Got the eco mode is yellow at the moment. I believe that's because the engine isn't warmed up yet, so it won't do any of the stop start stuff until it's warmed up. And yet again, left hand drive definitely at somewhat of an advantage. Look how close the blade gets that side compared to this side. It's not quite Ford Galaxy Mark 1 levels, but that is a little disappointing. I think the first generation does slightly better, to be honest. Bit of a triangle here, but it's all hidden behind the mirror. For once we have a rear wiper. Let's play with that and expose the major flaw of such a design of wiper, which is that yeah, you get quite a lot of dribbles going on. Anyway, we shall get over that. We shall knock her into drive. I'm not sure I'm in flappy paddle. I think I have to put her in auto and then start flappy paddling. But let's see how smooth she is compared to the first generation. Even just pulling away, that feels smoother. It kind of feels like it's not a clutch, more like a torque converter. Still very stiff in terms of suspension. And there we go, we're into second gear. Okay. So we are following some instructions the owner has very carefully given us, or very kindly given us.
Carefully and kindly.
Carefully and kindly. Yeah, that engine is a lot smoother. Hasn't quite got the raucous bark of the first generation Smart. But yeah, the quality feels a lot better. The first generation felt like a bit of an insult to Mercedes-Benz. You associate Mercedes-Benz with quality. Although to be fair, their relationship with Chrysler threw quality straight out the window. But this definitely feels just a bit better screwed together. And the fact we've got a 5-speed gearbox, oh hello Saab 900, means you're not having to change gear all the time. In the first generation, yeah, you're having to do a lot of gear changing, and I haven't got the flappy paddles, so that's a bit of a pain. Eco light has gone green now, so when we come to a stop or slow below 5 miles an hour, the engine should cut out. Yeah, sadly the suspension is ill suited to UK town roads. So the last one of these I drove was a turbo, and I did find that a little frustrating to drive. You had the lag of the gearbox with the lag of the turbo. This of course doesn't have that, and I would say it doesn't feel horrendously slow. I know we're still driving around town. The 0 to 60 time is just over 13 seconds incidentally, and it's more like about 10 for the turbo. But just that little bit of extra capacity means it doesn't pick up and kick you back in your seats, but gets along nicely. But yeah, I do like this with the roof panel. It feels really light in here, and I like that. And another big plus on the second generation compared to the first, I can actually control the passenger window from the driver's door, which you couldn't do in the first generation. Each window had its own switch, so you had to reach across. Bit of a pain.
Fourth exit A477.
Thank you, sat nav lady. Yeah, it's still not the quickest on gear changes, but it is notably better than the first generation. And again, I think because it's a non-turbo, I think that helps as well, because by the time the turbo had kicked in, you're kind of been thrown back a bit, and then you change gear and it's all the boost goes, all the power goes, and then you're back on it again. Yeah, this feels different. We've got a creek going on somewhere ahead of me. You're just looking at the windows there.
No, I was trying to locate the creek.
Yeah, road noise is still fairly profound, and there is some wind noise as well, even though it's got a fixed roof. Mirrors are an improvement over the first generation, just a little bit larger.
I think you should do a wind noise comparison to ours.
Yeah, okay, I'll drop some footage in. It is bad.
Something else about this car is how the wind noise picks up.
It's horrendous. Now we should get the stop-start kicking in, because I'm not going to chance it in front of that big lorry. There we go. Engine is off. Let's turn the fan down a bit to make the most of that. In front of this one though. Engine's running. Yeah, it is much smoother on acceleration, but it feels much smoother than the, like I say, the second generation turbo I drove. I mean, they were always tinkering with the gearbox, so maybe they changed it again, I don't know. Oh, good old 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. National speed limit, let's see how she goes. Yeah, smoothly does it. 60 miles an hour. Dim probs, as they say in these parts. Realising also there's a little more footwell space as well. I find in our first generation my foot is just pushed a little bit too much towards the middle of the car by wheel arch intrusion. I think these cars are about 20 centimetres longer than the original. The original was a full 2.5 metres long. I think these are just a bit longer. Which allows it to feel a bit more spacious, and for them to still pack lots of safety kit in. Ooh, Jimny! Hi Jimny! Oh, it is so much smoother on the downshift. For whether the MHD is a good idea to buy, I think this owner's had one issue and it went back to the dealer for that and was sorted out free of charge. They can go wrong. There's an awful lot riding on that one belt, but look after them and they do seem to go on okay. Stereo's much better in the second gen. One minor annoyance with this stop start, I've got my foot on the brake at the moment. If I put the handbrake on and take my foot off the brake, the engine starts up again, which kind of defeats the point for me. I don't like sitting somewhere with my foot on the brake. If you stop for a long time at traffic lights or something, it's quite natural to take your foot off the brake and put the handbrake on. To me, anyway. I know most Americans are going, what? Don't touch the parking brake. But I've got yellow eco at the moment. If I've got green eco and I put my foot on the brake even with the handbrake on, oh, there we go. It does actually turn the engine off again. I suppose that is at least telling people behind me that I'm stopped. Is it actually worth it in terms of the economy savings? Well, they claim something like 10% improvement around town. But obviously the sort of roads we're driving on, we're barely coming to a stop. It's not going to make the slightest bit of difference. But mark my words, we will see more cars like this, because as long as you can coax the word hybrid into it somewhere, you will be able to continue selling them when the petrol and diesel sales bans come into force. So expect to see some very mild hybrids on the market. We're already getting them. They already exist. The Fiat Panda is just but one of them. I think the Suzuki Ignis you can get as a rather mild hybrid as well. And there's definitely some benefits to having cars turning off in city traffic rather than just sitting there idling. But yes, it still feels like a bit of a con, really. So we're stopped at the moment, but the yellow eco light is on. So something, either the battery hasn't got enough charge, or we've used up too much brake servo pressure, so it won't turn the engine off until it's happy everything is a-okay. So we are sat here idling at the moment, so we can do, oh, there we go. It's just clicked into I'm happy. So green light's back on. It has shut off. So 0 to 60 test from a non-running engine. So it's no ball of fire, but it feels quicker than the it feels quicker than the first generation, purely because there are fewer gear changes. In the first generation, you can use fourth gear by 30 miles an hour. So it means if you're doing a hard acceleration like that, you'll just change, or rather change, because I haven't got fappy paddles. You're doing a lot of gear changing. So 5 definitely suits the car better, I think. Rare case of a modern car, I think, going from a 6-speed to a 5-speed, but definitely big benefits. What I will say I'm missing is things like this. We're doing 2000 revs in 5th. With the little turbo on the first generation, the low down torque is actually really impressive. And because this is naturally aspirated, it hasn't really got anything to help it along other than the capacity. I apologise for my yawning camera lady. Clearly I'm once again proving riveting company. She should be used to it by now.
I don't think heard me.
Oh, okay.
If you don't point
Oh, well, there we go. But there we go. That is the second generation micro hybrid drive smart. I don't think necessarily to be as feared as a lot of people would claim. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to say it. The best one of these to go for is the non-turbo MHD. It's probably not a conclusion anyone else is coming to, but I think it's worth living with the downsides of the hybrid system for the fact that this is the smoothest smart I have ever driven. So thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned to the channel because the owner owns something very, very different from the 1930s, and we're driving that next. So we'll see you in a future video. Farewell. Smart.